Hi there, Marissa here. So the other day I was talking to a friend and she was telling me that there was this book that she really wanted, but it was $21 and she wasn't going to spend $21 on a book. Meanwhile, this same friend went and bought a $16 ticket to see Spider-Man. So did I. I love Spider-Man. Can't wait to see Spider-Man Homecoming. 2 days, we're gonna see it. Can't wait. But I was like, huh? You'll spend $16 for 2 hours. All right, well, we'll say with trailers and everything else, 2.5 hours. You'll spend $16 for 2.5 hours, but you're not going to spend $21 for a book that is going to take you 6 hours to read, and that is going to arrest you in a way that a movie never could, and that is going to use your imagination in new ways, and that's going to stay with you. And I never understand it when people have these qualms about the price of books. I really don't. I'll put it to you this way, okay? My favorite books, I read them once. They take me 3 to 6 hours, okay? Then they go on my bookshelf. Now they're aesthetically pleasing. Now they have become an accent in the room. I look at them fondly on my shelf and I go, man, I remember that book. That was fun. Those were some crazy times, because you have these images in your mind of what that book was. The book I have in my mind right now is actually a book I read in 7th grade for the first time called Hellphone. And the main evil character, because I don't know, the evil characters always, they're the ones that you would never want to know in real life, but they're always the ones who are the most intriguing. And the evil character in that, I have such a vivid picture in my mind, and nobody else would picture him the way that I do. Another part of the beauty of books. Nobody else would picture him the way that I do, but I have this picture in my mind, and whenever I see that book on my shelf, I think of that guy, and how creepy he was, but how intrigued I was by that image, and by everything. And there's this scene where they're in hell, and the punishment in hell is listening to people drunkenly sing karaoke music, and I think that is one of the funniest things in the world. It's hilarious, because what could be worse? Torture than listening to people drunkenly sing whatever song, I Will Survive. It's hilarious. It's so funny. And the thing is, I read that book when I was in 7th grade for the first time, and then I plan on reading it again. I think I read it one other time, but it stayed with me. So that was probably 6 hours I spent on that book. And I think it cost me $12, which was a lot when I was 12 years old. I mean, that was like a week's allowance or whatever. I worked in my parents' carpet store, so I never got allowance. I would help them out in their store and got a lot of experience that way. So $12 was like 3 hours of work or whatever. So I had to work for that money, and I really appreciated the book that way. And I wouldn't have appreciated as much had that book been a movie ticket. I'm not putting down movies. Love movies too. Wonderful art form. Wonderful stories. I do keep my movie stubs, but they're in a book that cost me $18. I thought, is $18 worth buying a book for my movie stubs? Yes, it is. When in doubt, when it comes to books, say yes. So my point is, books are worth it, and they're almost priceless. Because when you think, nothing else does what they do. Nothing else engages the mind in that way. Nothing else arrests you like them. It's like before Gutenberg, you had to be super rich to afford books. And I'm so glad it's not like that now, but it kind of makes sense, because if there's anything that should have a super high value, it's books. It's amazing to me that I'm thinking my favorite book, Clockwork Orange. I've read that thing a dozen times, at least. All right? And my first time reading it, because it's in NADSAT, and I had to essentially dissect the language, it took me a really long time to read that thing. I mean, hours and hours and hours. And then each time it takes you less hours, and the last time I got it, I really knocked my time down. I'm very proud of that. But the thing is, like, the amount of time and entertainment that you get out of the book, it's incredible, and it doesn't compare to anything else. A lot of the time people say, oh, you're paying for the experience. You go on the beach, you pay $10, to go on the beach, you pay $12 for parking, but you're paying for the experience of going to that beach. Well, what about a book? What about people complain they're spending $12 on a book. I spent $12 on something, but how much time and enjoyment are you getting out of it? And it's incredible. You can't compare it to anything else. So that's why I say nay on complaining about book prices. I think that whatever they're worth, whatever you pay, they're really worth it, because they should be a lot more expensive. Except college textbooks, those are out of control. And I say that because I begin going for my doctorate in literature next month. Woo! And but honestly, whatever, they're worth it. You get so much out of them. And also, on a side note, I have gone back to my fiction roots. You see, for the past few years, I've been reading mostly nonfiction, and I exhausted the entire comedy section of Barnes & Noble, all the business books, all the bio books, like all this stuff. And I was reading a lot of fiction for Gen Z, because a lot of our books, probably 90% of our books are fiction. So that was where I was getting my fiction from, just all the Gen Z books. Okay, they're fiction, I'll read them, and then on my downtime I'll read nonfiction. But I was missing something, and it started, I went back to, now I'm gonna forget her name, but the author of Gone Girl, her first book, I read that, and it got me, and I'm like, alright, I'm back on the fiction train. I love those books with twist endings, so then I went on a hunt to find more books with twist endings, and I haven't looked back, and I've just been reading a bunch of fiction again. So even though I say that my favorite genres are nonfiction and like comedy and alright business, I really do enjoy fiction as well. But I should say I enjoy thriller fiction with a twist. The romance books, still not so much. The young adult books, I still can't really get into. You know, I think that the thing with young adult, because so many adults are into young adult, when I was in high school and I was really into young adult books, my English teacher said to me, don't read that. You're too old for that. You're too advanced for that. I think she would have her head up in the clouds a little bit too much, but it's ingrained in there somewhere, and I can't get around to reading the young adult the way that I would have had she not done it, because she was very influential to me. So I gotta get over that and get into the young adult stuff, because I know I'm missing out on that. But yeah, so let me know what your favorite genre is, because I want to explore more genres, because I feel like I keep going in circles between comedy, business, thriller, also bio. A weird one. I'm reading Whoopi Goldberg's book now. I'll read anything. It's actually really good. I didn't think it was going to be good. I loved Whoopi in Sister Act, but when she wrote a book, I'm thinking of Whoopi from The View. I'm not. The View isn't exactly my cup of joe. And I'm like, I don't know what this is going to be. It's awesome. It's really good. So that's why I think you need to keep your mind open when it comes to books and exploring new things, because I would have never read Whoopi's book, but I saw it and I'm like, well, I've read every other book in this section. Let me check it out. It's really good. So, yeah, let me know if there are any books that you would recommend, what genres you like, what you think I should check out. And, oh, you know what else I'm not into the whole, and people are very surprised by this, fantasy. I like using my imagination, but I only can use it so much. Like, once you start having dragons and whatever, I don't know what people put in fantasy stuff. Once you start having dragons running around, I kind of start going, alright, where's our semblance of realism? I don't know. I prefer a book that's a little bit more grounded in reality, because I think I'm just a little bit more linear. But I mean, there are Beowulf and stuff that had me. That was, but most of them. And the other thing, okay, if this were a thesis, if this were an essay right now, thank gosh I'm not going for my doctorate just yet. I would be failing right now, because I am all over the place. But there are so many thoughts when it comes to books. There are just so many thoughts, you know. But yeah, so let me know your favorite books, your favorite genres. I'm gonna check them out, because that's the thing. There's so much to explore when it comes to books, and it's really infinite. And this is where I was going with this. Okay, so I go to Barnes & Noble, and the books there, they're all pretty much by big names, published by the big publishers. And now I own an indie publisher. I was an indie author. My best friends are authors, and they're indie authors, and I really want to support indie authors. And it can be challenging to find books by them, because you type in comedy book into Amazon, first thing that comes up is Judd Apatow. Great book, but where are the indie authors? Then comes like David Cross, another amazing book. David Cross is one of the best stand-up comedians. Then comes Bo Burnham, fantastic book. All right, I'm not gonna they're all great books, trust me, but I want to read some books by indie authors. I want to read a lot more books by indie authors, and they don't get the support, and they, a lot of the time, just like indie movies and indie music, there's more truth to them, there's more depth, and that's why I really want to find them. And it's almost like a treasure hunt. So I started searching indie comedy book or indie comedy author on Amazon, like looking on like page 20 of the business book section for independent books, for authors that don't have 500 reviews. And it's tough. It's like trying to find buried treasure. So in that way it's kind of fun, but in another way it's kind of like, all right, dude, I'm gonna spend 6 hours reading your book, just bring the book to me. So this is what I'm asking from you: book recommendations, book genre recommendation, and who is your favorite indie author and or book by an indie author. And that's where I'll leave you today. So key points. If I could probably put key points on there, all typed out nice, but yeah, we'll just type. Key points. Number 1, don't worry about the price of a book. You will get your money's worth. You will get your value. If you're paying to see Spider-Man or anything else in the movie theaters, if you're paying for your jumbo popcorn, you can afford the price of a book. And even if you can't, I spend many a Saturday at libraries, at their, now see, I like to mark up books. I like to draw all over them, put post-its in them, everything. So I can't exactly do that when I take out a book. So I go to their book sales and I fill up giant bags of books. And I love it. And that's where my collection, a lot of it comes from. And then what I don't get there, I order online or I get in Barnes & Noble. So don't put a price on books. You'll always get value in that book. The amount of time that you spend, the amount of mental energy that you spend, the way that it arrests you, everything, it's worth it. Don't worry about the price of the book. If I hear one more person complain, this book is $16, I don't think I can get it, please, you can get the book. Second, be open to new genres. I was very stubborn, and I was only reading nonfiction and comedy. I mean, comedy is still pretty much nonfiction because it was like non-fictional accounts said humorously. I was very stubborn and only reading that in addition to the Gen Z books, but you get it. I was pretty much just reading nonfiction in my leisure time. Not a good idea. Mix up those genres. Read something outside your comfort zone. My challenge to myself, I'm going to read a fantasy book. Maybe I will like dragons after all. Maybe I'll read a romance book. But we'll see. Read something outside your comfort zone. And number 3, explore the indie authors, because there's so many out there that are amazing and it's hard to find them. So use some extra energy and go hunting for a new book by an indie author. And that is where I leave you. Thank you, folks, and like, subscribe, follow Gen Z, do all that. Check out our Gen Z books at genzpublishing.org. We have a phenomenal bookstore with a good 50 books on there, so check those out too.